The LA Kings point streak ends at 12 in Calgary as they get ready for a huge game in Edmonton. Who should start in net against the Oilers? That and much more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I wanted to share with you real quick some information about the podcast and the YouTube channel that I found out about today. We are in the top 10 of all of the Locked On NHL shows as far as audio listens and video views. And we are the top listened to and viewed show of any Pacific Division team. So thought that was pretty cool. Wanted to share that with you. Thank you for all the support all the time. My name is Eddie Garcia. I'm your host of Locked On LA Kings. I have worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast. It's a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 16 years and a passionate LA Kings fan for the past 30 years. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Coming up on the show, we're going to recap the Kings' loss in Calgary, check the latest in the Kings goalie competition, give you some news on some Kings prospects, and of course, talk about the tight race in the Pacific Division as we get ready for that big game in Edmonton on Thursday. But before we look forward, we must look back. And the LA Kings franchise record streak of 12 straight games with a point came to an end on Tuesday with a frustrating 2-1 loss in Calgary to the Flames. Frustrating because the Kings had plenty of scoring chances and failed to capitalize on them. But the game also didn't start well for the Kings, which they have been doing well lately as far as getting off to good starts in games. Didn't happen this one as the Flames' first shot of the game went into the net. Philip Deneau was in the penalty box for the Kings after taking a tripping call. Shot on net was blocked, but the rebound went in, and that made it 1-0 Flames. Kings defenseman Sean Durzi would tie it up after some help from the fourth line. Rasmus Kupari would carry the puck into the Flames zone, dish it off at the blue line to Arthur Calia, who then found Sean Durzi coming into the zone with some speed. Durzi was able to put in a beautiful wrist shot, top left corner, to tie up the game at 1-1. Calgary would end up scoring the final goal of the period and what would turn out to be the final goal of the game on a lucky bounce. Shot towards the net, went off the end boards, and perfectly came to the other side of the net where a Flames player was there to put it home. That made it 2-1, and with no scoring in the second or the third periods, that was the final. Flames win 2-1. Goaltender Jonas Korpisalo was good enough for the Kings to get a win. He allowed 2 goals on 32 shots. The 30 saves were the most Korpisalo has made in a game since joining the LA Kings. More on the Kings goalie competition coming up in just a moment. I said at the top, it was a frustrating loss, mostly because the Kings, I thought, had plenty of good scoring chances, but just failed to capitalize. Probably their best chance was when Kevin Fiala had a breakaway, and he had all day to make any move he wanted after the defenseman fell down. Now, he may have been thrown off a bit because he thought that Victor Arvidsson was going to join him for a 2-on-0, but Arvidsson lost his stick after getting tied up with that stumbling defender. But you have to put that chance away. It was almost as if it was a shootout chance. He had so much time to do whatever he wanted, and unfortunately just didn't convert. Adrian Kempe had a couple of great scoring chances in that second period. He had a partial breakaway. Matt Roy got a pass in the high slot with a ton of speed and put a hard shot on net, but couldn't finalize. Kempe again got robbed in the third period as well. All these were grade A scoring chances, and the Kings have been finishing most of these lately over this run of 12 points, a point in 12 straight games, but it just did not happen for the Kings last night. And yes, you do have to give some credit to Flames goalie Jacob Markstrom, who has been an elite goalie at times in his career, but has really struggled so far this season. But the Flames are in the thick of things in the wild card race. It was a big game for them, and their goaltender did come up big, but I did think the Kings definitely have their chances, and missed opportunities are a bit of a theme in the game. Second period, I thought the Kings got fortunate when it appeared the Flames scored on a mad scramble in front of the net, but the call on the ice was no goal. They went to video replay and they couldn't show a conclusive shot of the puck fully over the goal line. I think it was over the goal line, but the Kings got a little bit of a break on that one. And then the Flames also had a goal wiped away in the first period on a successful coach's challenge for an offside. So good job by the coaches of knowing what was going on there and taking advantage of that. But the Kings couldn't take advantage of those breaks that they had in this game. Kings were also 0 for 2 on the power play. Now, was it a terrible game by the Kings? No. Was it actually a better performance than their 7-6 win over the Blues on Saturday? I think in some ways it probably was. But still, I think we can all agree that was a pretty frustrating loss. It'll be interesting to see how this game does or does not carry over into Thursday's big matchup against the Oilers in Edmonton. Head coach Todd McClellan did shuffle up the lines a bit in the third period to try and get the team going, but it didn't work. He ended up going back to the original lines to finish off the game. I expect to see the same lines the Kings had for this game against Calgary, against the Oilers, but we'll see. That does include, by the way, the goaltending rotation continuing. We are going to get into that in just a second. But first, I want to let you know that today's episode of Locked on LA Kings is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. We are past the midway point of the NBA season, heading down the stretch in the NBA, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to points scored to three-pointers made. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let us check in on the ever-evolving and always important goaltending competition for the LA Kings. And again, this is checking the numbers since Joonas Korpisalo was acquired before the trade deadline, and the team started to alternate starts in net between him and Phoenix Copley. Again, last night, Joonas Korpisalo allowed 2 goals on 32 shots. I thought that both goals certainly did not qualify as being soft goals. Matter of fact, I don't know many goaltenders who would have stopped either of the goals for Calgary. The first one I mentioned came after a block shot. Defenseman Alex Edler had the puck go off him and landed his feet, basically. And Korpisalo obviously had to react to the shot and kind of where he thought it was heading. So he moved in that direction. And then, unfortunately, after it hit Edler, it just bounced right on the stick of a Flames player, and he was able to put it home pretty easily. Also, the second goal, a bad bounce, or if you're a Flame, I guess a good bounce, off the end boards and then perfectly around the other side to a Calgary player. Again, I do not think either of those goals were soft goals by any stretch for Joonas Korpisalo, and he had many quality saves in this game. Probably his best game as an LA King. So it was his first loss in regulation as a member of the LA Kings. As a matter of fact, it was the first loss between either Phoenix Copley or Joonas Korpisalo in regulation since the trade deadline. For Joonas Korpisalo, his record now as a Los Angeles King is at 4-1-1. His goals against average increased from 1.77 to 1.82. His save percentage actually went up from 929 to 931. As for Phoenix Copley, he's 5-0-1 since the trade deadline. Of course, 23-4-3 overall. His goals against average since Korpisalo was acquired is at 231. That is compared to 1.82 for Korpisalo. Again, 2.31 for Copley, 1.85 for Korpisalo. The save percentage is a 902 for Phoenix Copley. For Korpisalo, again, 931. So 902 to 931 in favor of Joonas Korpisalo. Now, as far as we know, the Kings will continue to alternate goalies despite the numbers trending in favor of Korpisalo as of late. But I think heading into this huge game against the Oilers, I still expect to see the rotation continue. Now, I know Phoenix Copley allowed 6 goals on Sunday against St. Louis. We talked about that on Monday's show. I thought one of them was a soft goal allowed. I thought 2 of them stoppable, but in high danger areas. So I don't think that performance was quite as bad as it might seem on the surface. And I said on Tuesday's show that unless Jonas Korpisalo did something really otherworldly, like a 40-plus save performance in a shutout, I don't think that would be carry over to disrupt the alternating of starts at this point. So I believe that Phoenix Copley should and will start in net against the Edmonton Oilers in that huge game coming up on Thursday. Obviously, it is a huge start for Phoenix Copley to show what he can do against obviously one of the better teams in the Western Conference and potentially the Kings' first round playoff opponent in the postseason, that's the scheduled matchup now. It's been that matchup for most of the last month or so. I did want to check the numbers, though, as we're kind of getting a bit of a preview. And again, kind of trying to figure out if this rotation is going to continue with this huge game coming up. So, what are the head-to-head numbers for Phoenix Copley and Jonas Korpisalo against the Edmonton Oilers this season? Well, they're a combined 3-0. Copley has faced Edmonton once this season. That was on January the 9th. He allowed 3 goals on 31 shots, and that was a Kings 6-3 victory. Jonas Korpisalo is 2-0 against the Oilers this season. Both of his wins came while he was still a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets. On February 25th, he made 47 saves in a win over the Oilers. Now, he did allow 5 goals in that one as Columbus was able to outscore Edmonton for a 6-5 win. Also for Korpisalo, he faced the Oilers on January 25th, made 36 saves, allowing 2 goals in a 3-2 overtime win for the Blue Jackets over the Oilers. As of the recording of this show, as we again kind of look ahead towards the game against the Oilers, there is no update on the status of Kings forward Gabe Vilardi. He did miss the game against the Flames with an upper body injury, didn't make the trip with the Kings to Alberta, officially listed as day-to-day. Now, if you missed it, head coach Todd McClellan didn't rule out Vilardi joining the Kings on this current road trip at some point. As far as we know, though, he's not going to be available for the Oilers game. We'll certainly update that tomorrow and keep an eye out on our Twitter account at Locked On LA Kings for updates on that. Obviously, the Kings could have used Vilardi's offense and, frankly, his defense last night against the Flames. And if you don't follow the show on Twitter, I saw something interesting that I retweeted, and I'll share with you now if you don't follow us on Twitter. The account at AR Hockey Stats tweeted the following, quote, Gabriel Vilardi definitely should be among the top 10 in Selke finalists this season, maybe top 5. The problem is no one is talking about him. We need to make an agenda for Gabe Vilardi. The Selke Trophy is, if you don't know, the top award given out to the best defensive forward in the NHL. That account, again, it is at AR Hockey Stats, went on to say, no one has better expected goals shared than Vilardi among forwards on the team. The Kings have scored 33 goals for and allowed 18 goals against with Vilardi on the ice 5-on-5, which is the best goal shared among all Kings who have played at least 200 minutes. Now, as I have stated many times, I am not too much into the advanced analytics or stats, but I'm trying to get better at it, and I'm open-minded to it. But my opinion would be watching every game that the LA Kings have played so far this year, that Anze Kopitar is clearly the best defensive forward on the LA Kings. And I think Adrian Kente's defensive game is very underrated. That said, I do think Gabe Vilardi's defensive game has largely gone unnoticed. And I agree, it is something he should probably get more credit for. Hopefully we'll see his offensive and defensive game on the ice for the LA Kings here very much in the near future. Also wanted to mention quickly that we did see Arthur Calia back in the lineup for the Kings against the Flames. There has been that rotation going on the right wing position there on the fourth line between Calia and Jarrett Anderson-Dolan and Zach McEwen. And you probably know if you've watched this show at all that I have been very much in favor of Arthur Calia playing in that position. So I try to pay particular attention to what he does when he is back in the lineup. And I thought he played pretty well against the Flames. As I mentioned, he did have the primary assist on the Kings' lone goal. Also had some pretty good scoring chances throughout the game. Didn't get much of an opportunity on the Kings' second power play unit. But I still think the better option for the Kings going forward is for Arthur Calia to be playing on the right side on that fourth line. But Todd McClellan has had that rotation going. We'll see if that continues going forward, and we'll see who will be playing on the fourth line on that right side in the big game against the Oilers on Thursday. Coming up, we have some news that we need to share about some LA Kings prospects, including Brandt Clarke killing it in the Ontario Hockey League. And we're going to look at the Pacific Division standings and where things stands after a lot of big games on Tuesday. But first, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories? Got to try Built Bar. They are so delicious that you won't think that they're good for you. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They come in unbelievable new flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. Not sure how Built does it, but they're healthy. They're protein bars, but they taste like candy bars. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you don't need to wait to get yours. You could order them at built.com, but you could also go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. They are in the pharmacy section. In addition to the new flavors, they have all the old favorites too, like cookies and cream, double chocolate, and coconut puffs. Built Bars, protein bars that taste like candy bars. Before we update you on the Pacific Division standings after Tuesday's action and the current playoff picture in the Western Conference, there are some news to pass along regarding the LA Kings that we have not had a chance to talk about because of the way the Kings have been playing as of late and recapping some of the games. First off, with the return of Sean Durzi from injury, the LA Kings did make a roster move. They sent defenseman Jordan Spence down to the AHL, and he has rejoined the Ontario Reign. If you've again watched or listened to any of these shows, you know I'm a big Jordan Spence fan. I wish we could have seen more of him in his latest stint in the call-up with the Kings. He appeared in 2 games with LA, March 9th against Colorado and March 18th against Vancouver. He finished with 1 assist and was a +3 playing on the third pairing. And I thought did a very good job running the Kings' second power play unit. No doubt he's going to get recalled when the Kings expand their rosters once the postseason gets going. But again, Jordan Spence back in the AHL for now. Hopefully see more of him in the NHL here in the near future. You may recall we told you last week that the LA Kings made a trade with the Florida Panthers to acquire the rights to Michigan State defenseman Cole Krieger. Well, the Kings signed Krieger to a 2-year entry-level contract. It begins next season. Is worth $800,000, a little over $837,000 annually. Now, he's 22 years old. He's a left shot defense. Recently completed his 5th season at Michigan State, was an alternate captain for the team. He had 10 goals and 6 assists in 38 games. His 10 goals led Michigan State defensemen and ranked tied for 4th among all NCAA blue liners. 160 career college games. He had 20 goals, 21 assists for 41 points, 193 penalty minutes as well. Originally drafted by the Panthers in the 7th round of the 2018 draft. The name might sound familiar as Cole's father, Todd Krieger, played parts of 10 seasons in the NHL from 1989 to 1998 with the Hartford Whalers, Washington Capitals, and the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Hockey Royalty had a chance to talk with one of Cole Krieger's coaches at Michigan State, who said about Cole, quote, "He is very consistent, played with a presence most games, which stemmed from skating, competing, and being physical, and playing fast. His size, skating, and length helped him cover a lot of ice," end quote. So we'll keep an eye on Cole Krieger, now officially a member of the LA Kings organization. Also, this from Frank Civarelli from the Daily Faceoff. He says, quote, "Hearing LA Kings prospect Alex Laferriere is leaving Harvard to sign after his sophomore season. Laferriere is expected to burn his first year of his deal and play games for the Kings this regular season." End quote. Again, that was from Frank Civarelli. Now, I assume when he says he'll play for the Kings this season, he actually means in the Kings organization and for the Ontario Reign. I cannot envision Alex Laferriere actually being on the Kings active roster and seeing any playing time at this point. But he is a prospect that has really been on the rise. He beat out former first-round pick of the Calgary Flames prospect Matt Coronado for the team scoring lead at Harvard this season. Laferriere finished with 21 goals in 34 games. He was also second on the team in points with 42. He was a 3rd-round pick of the Kings in 2020 and took part in the Kings development camp this past season. So again, Alex Laferriere from Harvard, now officially a member of the Los Angeles Kings, or actually, you know what? That isn't official yet, but according to a report, that is going to be something that takes place here in the very near future. And also sticking with college hockey, the LA Kings recently acquired the rights to goalie Eric Portillo from the Buffalo Sabres. Now, he has helped lead the University of Michigan into the Frozen Four. If you're not familiar with college hockey, it's basically like the Final Four in basketball. And if you want to check out Eric Portillo, he and the Michigan Wolverines will be in the Frozen Four against Quinnipiac starting a week from tomorrow. That's April 6th in one of the national semifinals. That's in Tampa. It's going to be broadcast on ESPN2. We'll try and give you a reminder coming up next week as well. But who knows? Maybe the future in net for the LA Kings. Eric Portillo, University of Michigan, playing in some big games coming up for the Wolverines. And one more note. Because of the way the Kings have been playing of late, we really haven't talked much about Brandt Clarke. Obviously, he was a huge part of the shows early in the season when he was getting that look with the LA Kings. And obviously, we're all super excited to see what the future holds for Brandt Clarke. But the present for Brandt Clarke, and maybe it's as expected, but he has been killing it in the Ontario Hockey League, playing for the Barrie Colts. He was recently named the OHL Player of the Month and also the Defenseman of the Month for a third straight month. 9 games in March. Clarke had 22 points, 11 goals, and 11 assists. Also included a hat trick in the mix. He's a plus 16 for the month and was also named, like I said, Player of the Month, not just Defenseman of the Month. So Brandt Clarke is, again, just killing it in the OHL. They've got the Ontario Hockey League playoffs coming up as well, which Barrie is going to be a part of. So we'll try and keep an eye on what's going on with Brandt Clarke. But the big prospect for the LA Kings is doing as well as expected, if not more so, playing in the Ontario Hockey League, which is obviously great to see. All right. After last night's Kings loss to Calgary and Edmonton's 7-4 win over Vegas, with Jonathan Quick, by the way, allowing 6 goals before getting pulled, the Kings are now 2 points back of the Golden Knights for the Pacific Division lead, still 2 points back, but now just 1 point up on the Oilers for second place in the division and home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So obviously Thursday's game against Edmonton is going to be very significant. The Kings' magic number to clinch a playoff spot, by the way, is at 4. The Kings do have 1 game in hand on the Oilers. And speaking of Edmonton, coming up on tomorrow's show, we are scheduled to have an interview with my colleague, Brett Holden, who is the host of Locked On Oilers, to get his perspective on Thursday's big game against the Kings and what is going to be possibly a playoff preview. Get his thoughts on where the Oilers' strengths and weaknesses are, what's been going well and what's concerning him regarding the Edmonton Oilers, and obviously previewing that big game against the LA Kings. So looking forward to that conversation and talking about Kings Oilers coming up on tomorrow's show, in an interview with the host of Locked On Oilers, Brett Holden. As always, your feedback is welcome here on the show. Anything we talk about with the LA Kings or anything that's on your mind, the email address, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. If you are watching on the YouTube channel, of course, you can always post your comments below, and would love for you to follow the show on Twitter at Locked On LA Kings, also at Locked On LA Kings on Instagram as well. Thank you for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen today. Want to invite you to make your second listen game to game NHL, every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysts that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. And as always, go Kings, go.